Welcome to the AI-powered reader, your shortcut to unlocking the world's best books. Get ready to absorb key insights, understand core concepts, and expand your knowledge all in a fraction of the time. Let's dive in.
Have you ever had that feeling where there's a huge gap between what you say you believe and how you actually live your life day to day? Yeah, it's a pretty common struggle. Well, today we are going to dive into John Mark Comer's really influential book, Practicing the Way, because it offers a powerful roadmap to close that exact gap. Comer kicks things off not with some big statement, but with a question that just cuts right to the heart of it all. Who are you following? Because, whether we even realize it or not, we are all following someone or something every single day.
In this quote right here, this is his core idea. Think about it. Every single day, there are these powerful forces trying to shape who we become. Our phones, the culture around us, our own ambitions. Comer says the easiest way to be shaped by all that stuff is to just believe you aren't being shaped at all. And that's why the real question isn't if you're a disciple. It's whose disciple are you choosing to be?
All right, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll tackle that big question. Who are you following? Then, we'll look at the three-goal path Comer lays out. After that, we'll dive into what it means to practice God's presence. And finally, we'll ask the tough question. Is this path really possible for us today?
Okay, so let's jump right into part one. Who are you following? Comer's whole point is that, especially in the West, we've kind of created this version of Christianity where you can believe all the right things about God, but not actually organize your life around being an apprentice to Jesus. And the data he points to, well, it's pretty staggering.
And this is where it gets really eye-opening. Check this out. While a huge majority of Americans, 63%, would say, yes, I'm a Christian, some studies show that a tiny fraction, like only 4%, are actively trying to live the way Jesus lived. For Comer, that's not just an interesting statistic. He sees it as a major crisis right at the heart of the modern church. So this is the distinction he makes, and it's absolutely crucial. For a lot of people, Christian has just become this cultural label, or a set of ideas you agree with. But an apprentice, well, that's somebody who's actually practicing. It's someone whose whole life, day in and day out, is built around this journey of being with Jesus. The book basically argues Jesus wasn't looking for converts to a new religion. He was looking for apprentices to a new way of life.
Okay, so if being an apprentice is the goal, what does that actually look like in real life? And that brings us right to part two, the three-goal path. Comer says that to really get it, we have to kind of go back in time to the first century and see Jesus for who he was in his original context.
So back in his day, Jesus was seen as a rabbi. And a rabbi wasn't just a teacher who gave you information. A rabbi was a spiritual master who modeled an entire way of being in the world. To become an apprentice to a rabbi, that was the highest form of education you could get. It was way more intense than a classroom. Your whole life was the curriculum.
And this is the framework he gives for that apprenticeship. It's so simple, but it's incredibly profound. It's a three-part journey. The first goal was just to be with your rabbi all the time. Then, out of that constant presence, you'd start to become like your rabbi. And finally, you'd be ready to actually do the things your rabbi did.
But Comer is really clear on this point. This is not some mechanical formula or a checklist. It's a natural progression. You can't just skip ahead to becoming like Jesus or doing what he did. You absolutely have to start with that foundational and honestly, often the hardest goal, simply being with him.
And that leads us perfectly into part three, which you could argue the single most important takeaway from the entire book, practicing God's presence. This is all about that very first goal and the one central practice that makes it possible. So the key practice here is something Jesus called abiding. The Greek word is meno, and it literally means to remain, to stay, or even to make your home in something. So Jesus was basically saying, make your home in me, and I'll make my home in you. It's all about cultivating this constant, moment-by-moment awareness of his presence.
And here is where it gets really challenging for us. Because the truth is, we're all already abiding in something. Our minds have a default setting, right? An emotional home we always go back to. For a lot of us, that home is our worries, or our work, or just the endless scroll on our phones. The book is really asking us to intentionally choose to make our home in God's presence instead.
I love this quote Comer shares from an 18th century peasant. It just captures the whole idea so beautifully. See, it's not some complicated, mystical experience. It's just a simple, relational, mutual gaze.
It's about being present to the God who is always, always present to you. But okay, let's be real. Can this ancient path actually work in our crazy, distracted modern world? This brings us to our final section, Part 4, A Path for Today. Here, we're going to look at the book's biggest strengths and the very real hurdles it presents.
Now, the book has some massive strengths. First, it is just so practical. It takes faith out of your head and puts it into your hands and feet as a way of life. It's also a huge cultural challenge. It's like a wake-up call from that comfortable, passive kind of faith. And by grounding it all in that ancient rabbi model, it just feels so authentic and deeply rooted.
But, and this is a big but, the book does not sugarcoat how hard this is. Instead of pretending there are no challenges, Comer actually leans right into them. He argues that the biggest obstacles to living this way are baked right into our modern culture.
And he points to one obstacle in particular that stands above all the rest. He calls it an enemy that is actively fighting against any attempt we make to just slow down and be present with God.
And here it is. He borrows this from the philosopher Dallas Willard, who said, "You must ruthlessly eliminate hurry from your life." And Comer's point is that hurry isn't just a busy schedule, it's the great enemy of the spiritual life. Why? Because love, joy, and peace simply cannot survive in a life of hurry.
So, when you boil it down, this path faces some very real hurdles. First, there's that constant war against hurry. Second, there's the high cost. It requires real sacrifice and basically reordering your entire life. And finally, you have to come to terms with the slow pace of transformation. Real change takes time, and that goes completely against our culture's need for a quick fix.
And all of this leaves us with a final, lingering question. It's one the book doesn't really answer for you, but instead invites you to go and discover for yourself.
Because ultimately, practicing the way frames this whole thing not as some heavy burden or a complicated set of rules to follow. It frames it as what it was from the very beginning, a simple, open invitation from Jesus himself.
It's an invitation to just walk with him for a while, to experience life his way, and to see for yourself if maybe, just maybe, this path is better.
That's all for this episode of the AI-Powered Reader. We hope today's summaries sparked new ideas and brought you valuable insights. If you enjoyed what you heard, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and consider leaving a review. It really helps others discover the show. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep reading, or rather listening.